I'm 26, and I thought I had everything figured out. 4 years with Reese, living in this gorgeous 3-bedroom condo that his dad Lincoln practically gave us for nothing, and a life that looked perfect from the outside. But here's the thing nobody tells you about relationships. Sometimes you wake up one day and realize you're slowly dying inside. Anyway, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy hearing about my chaos, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. So there I was, coming home from another soul-crushing day at my marketing job, when this brilliant idea hit me like lightning. Ashton and Blair had been planning this Miami trip for weeks, and suddenly it felt like exactly what I needed. Sun, beach, freedom from Reese's constant need to micromanage every detail of our lives. The man literally has spreadsheets for our grocery lists. I'm not even kidding. He's one of those electrical engineer types who thinks everything can be solved with proper planning and color-coded organization. When I brought up the trip that evening, I made sure to frame it as just us girls needing some decompression time. What he didn't need to know was that Ashton had been talking to these guys from her gym, and they were planning to meet up with us down there. Patrick especially had been texting me after we met at one of Ashton's parties last month, and the chemistry was undeniable. The way he looked at me, like I was actually interesting and desirable, instead of just another item on Reese's to-do list. "Babe," I said, sitting on the arm of our sofa and running my fingers through his hair. "So Ashton and Blair are planning this trip to Miami next month. Just a girl's getaway, you know? Sun, beach, cocktails. We all really need to blow off some steam." Reese looked up from his laptop, because of course he was on his laptop at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, and just nodded along like he always does. "Sounds fun," he said in that flat tone he uses when he's not really listening. "How long?" 5 days. The flight's a bit pricey, but I was hoping we could put it on your credit card for the points. I'll pay you back half when my bonus hits." And just like that, he agreed. He always agreed. Sometimes I wondered if he even cared where I went, as long as I came back to play house with him in our perfectly organized little world. That night, as he transferred the money without even asking for details, I felt this weird mix of gratitude and resentment. Grateful that I didn't have to argue, but resentful that he didn't care enough to ask more questions. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of planning and anticipation. The group chat with Ashton, Blair, Patrick, and his friends Mike and Justin was getting more exciting by the day. We'd rented this amazing 3-bedroom Airbnb near South Beach, and the guys were splitting the cost with us. Patrick had made it clear he wanted to share a room with me, and for the first time in months, I felt that flutter of excitement in my stomach. Between us, I was getting tired of feeling invisible in my own relationship. Reese treated me like a roommate who occasionally shared his bed. He'd come home, eat the dinner I'd made, watch his shows, and fall asleep by 10:30. Where was the passion? Where was the man who used to surprise me with weekend trips and spontaneous date nights? Now he was more excited about his quarterly investment reports than he was about me. 2 days before the trip, everything was falling into place perfectly. I had my bags packed, my best bikinis ready, and Patrick had been sending me these messages that made me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. The anticipation was killing me in the best way. But then Reese had to go and ruin everything by being his usual paranoid self. I was in the shower, finally getting some peace and quiet, when I heard him moving around in the living room. When I came out, wrapped in my towel, he was sitting on the couch with this weird expression on his face. The TV was off, which was already strange, and he had that look, like when he's trying to solve some complicated electrical problem at work. "Why is it so quiet in here?" I asked, toweling off my hair. "I was just thinking about your trip," he said, and something in his voice made my skin prickle. "I was looking at hotels in Miami. Where are you guys staying again?" I kept my voice light, casual. "Oh, we found this cute boutique hotel near South Beach. Just a small place. Ashton booked it." "Really?" Because I was looking at Airbnbs and they seemed like a better deal for a group. The way he said it, like he was testing me, made my stomach clench. "No, we wanted hotel service," I lied smoothly, walking into the bedroom to get dressed. He followed me to the doorway, and I could feel his eyes boring into my back. So it's just you, Ashton, and Blair? Yes, Reese. Why are you interrogating me? I pulled a t-shirt over my head, letting irritation creep into my voice. I hated when he got like this, all suspicious and controlling. Because I know Patrick is going. I froze. My back was to him. But I felt my shoulders tense up involuntarily. How could he possibly know that? I turned around slowly, my mind racing through possibilities. Who's Patrick? I asked, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew it was too late. Patrick, and Mike, and Justin. And I know you aren't staying at a hotel, you're staying at a 3-bedroom Airbnb, and you aren't sleeping alone. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. My brain was working overtime, trying to figure out how much he knew and how I could spin this. Then it hit me. He'd been going through my messages. The violation of it made rage bubble up in my chest. Did you go through my phone? I snapped, crossing my arms. You violated my privacy, Reese? Are you serious right now? But he just stood there with that infuriating calm expression, like he had all the time in the world. I saw a notification on the iPad, but yeah, once I saw some strange guy texting my girlfriend about sleeping arrangements, I looked. And I saw everything, Violet. I saw you calling me useful. I saw you laughing about me paying for your flight so you could go hook up with some gym rat. The way he said, gym rat, like Patrick was beneath him somehow, made me want to scream. Here was this weak, unmasculine man who spent his evenings doing spreadsheets, acting like he was better than someone who actually took care of his body and knew how to have fun. I scoffed, rolling my eyes. You are blowing this completely out of proportion. Patrick is just a friend from the gym. We're all just going as a group. It's cheaper to split a house. A friend you're planning to share a room with? God, you are so insecure. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I was past caring. This is exactly what I was talking about in those texts. You're suffocating me, Reese. I feel like I can't breathe in this relationship. His jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice. That was the thing about Reese. He never yelled, never showed real emotion. It was like arguing with a robot programmed to stay calm. I'm suffocating you because I don't want you sharing a room with another man? Nothing is going to happen, I yelled, throwing my hands up. Unless you keep acting like this jealous psycho and drive me to it. I need this trip, Reese. I feel stagnant. I feel like I'm living this mind-numbing, soul-crushing life, and I just want 1 week to feel young and fun again. Is that a crime? I stepped closer, using my height to try and intimidate him. He was only about 2 inches taller than me, and right now he looked smaller than ever. Weak, pathetic. Not man enough to handle a woman who needed more than his safe, organized little world. Here's the deal, I continued, holding up 2 fingers. I am going to Miami. I am not canceling. I deserve this. You have 2 choices. I paused, watching his face for any sign of the fight I desperately wanted him to show. Choice 1. You get over your little insecurity, you trust me, and you let me go have a good time. You stop acting like my jailer. I let that sink in before continuing. Choice 2. You don't accept it. In which case, we're done. You can be single. If you can't handle me having male friends, then maybe we aren't compatible. I dropped my hands, feeling triumphant. I'd laid it out perfectly. Either he trusted me or he lost me. Simple as that. Those are my choices, he asked, his voice eerily quiet. Those are your choices, I confirmed. Ball's in your court, Reese. I'm going to the gym. I expect you to be done throwing your tantrum by the time I get back. I grabbed my gym bag and pushed past him, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the frame. As I drove away, I felt this rush of adrenaline mixed with vindication. I'd stood up for myself. I'd refused to let him control me. If he couldn't handle dating a woman with her own life and her own needs, then maybe we really weren't meant to be together. The gym was exactly what I needed. Loud music, endorphins, and Patrick's appreciative glances when I walked past the weight section. He came over during my cool down, that easy smile spreading across his face. Ready for Miami? He asked, leaning against my treadmill. More than ready, I replied, meaning every word. When I got home 2 hours later, the apartment was dark. Reese's car wasn't in the driveway, which was weird because he never went anywhere on weekday evenings. I figured he'd gone to cool off somewhere, maybe to his buddy's place or to see his dad. Good, let him think about what I'd said. Let him realize what he'd be losing if he kept acting like an insecure child. But when I woke up the next morning, his side of the bed was still empty. His car still wasn't in the driveway. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I tried again. Same thing. That's when I noticed the silence in the apartment. It took me a few minutes to figure out what was different, but then it hit me. The echo. My footsteps were echoing in ways they never had before. I walked into the living room and felt my stomach drop. My decorative pillows were gone, my throw blankets, my candles, the framed photos of us on the mantel, all gone. The apartment looked like a furniture showroom, sterile and impersonal. On the kitchen island, there was a piece of notebook paper with 3 sentences written in Reese's neat handwriting. You gave me 2 choices. I picked option 3. Your dad has your stuff. I stared at the note, my hands shaking. This couldn't be real. He wouldn't actually leave me over some harmless flirting. We'd been together for 4 years. We had a life together. I grabbed my phone and called him again. Blocked. I tried from the landline. Blocked. Then I called Lincoln, expecting him to be confused about why his son was acting so dramatically. But when he answered, his voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. Violet. Lincoln, what's going on? Where's Reese? He's not answering his phone and... Your boxes are in my driveway. He cut me off. It's going to rain tonight, so I suggest you come get them. And Violet, don't bring that iPad into my house. I know what you used it for. The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. Lincoln had always loved me. He'd told me once that I reminded him of his late wife, strong-willed and independent. He'd welcomed me into their family like I was his own daughter. And now he was talking to me like I was a stranger. The drive to Lincoln's house felt like a nightmare. When I pulled into his driveway, sure enough, there were my belongings stacked in cardboard boxes like garage sale leftovers. 4 years of my life reduced to a pile of crap on concrete. Lincoln was in his garage, deliberately not looking in my direction. I got out of my car and walked over to him. Lincoln, please, can we talk about this? He looked up from the lawnmower he was pretending to fix, and the disappointment in his eyes hit me like a physical blow. Nothing to talk about, he said simply. I raised my son to be a man of integrity. I thought I was getting a daughter-in-law with the same values. It's not what you think. I read the messages, Violet. I saw what you really think of him. Of me. His voice cracked slightly on the last part. Calling me pathetic, calling him useful. Using our family like we're some kind of convenience store. The shame that washed over me was overwhelming, but I pushed it down. I was just venting. I didn't mean. You meant every word. He turned back to his lawnmower. Get your things and go. I spent the next hour loading boxes into my car, while neighbors pretended not to stare. The humiliation was unbearable, but what choice did I have? By the time I was done, my car was packed to the ceiling and I could barely see out the back window. As I drove away from Lincoln's house, something inside me hardened. Fine. If this was how they wanted to play it, then I'd show them exactly what they were missing. I'd go to Miami, I'd have the time of my life, and when I came back glowing and happy, maybe then Reese would realize what an idiot he'd been. I went to Miami anyway, because what else was I supposed to do? Cancel and prove to Reese that he was right? Let him win, by showing that I couldn't survive without his financial support? But from the moment I landed, everything that was supposed to be perfect turned into a complete disaster. First, my flight had been canceled because Reese had called his credit card company and reported the charge as unauthorized. I stood at the customer service desk for 2 hours, watching other passengers get rebooked while I scrambled to buy a last-minute ticket on my own card. $800 I didn't have, maxing out my credit limit before the trip even started. When I finally got to the Airbnb, exhausted and stressed, the group was already 3 drinks deep and having a blast without me. Patrick barely looked up from his phone when I walked in, just gave me this casual, hey, like I was some random person crashing their party. Rough flight? Ashton asked, not really caring about the answer, as she posed for a selfie with her drink. I tried to explain what had happened, but nobody wanted to hear about my drama. They were on vacation mode, and my relationship problems were just bringing down the vibe. That first night, I thought things would get better. Patrick and I were supposed to be sharing the master bedroom, and I'd imagined us talking late into the night, connecting on a deeper level than I ever had with Reese. But when we got back from dinner, Patrick was already drunk and more interested in the Instagram models at the pool than in having any kind of meaningful conversation. "Keep the heavy stuff to yourself," he said when I tried to tell him about what was happening back home. "We're here to have fun, not talk about your ex-boyfriend drama." Ex-boyfriend. The casual way he said it, like my 4-year relationship was just some minor inconvenience, made me want to throw my drink at him. But I forced a smile and pretended everything was fine. By the second night, Patrick had moved on completely. He brought some random blonde back to our room that I'd helped pay for, and told me I could sleep on the couch. I lay there in the dark, listening to them through the thin walls, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Ashton and Blair were too busy with Mike and Justin to notice that their friend was falling apart. Every time I tried to talk to them about what was happening, they'd change the subject, or drag me to another bar where I'd smile and pretend to have fun, while my bank account drained and my heart broke a little more. The worst part was the silence from home. I kept checking my phone, expecting angry texts from Reese or concerned messages from mutual friends, but there was nothing. Complete radio silence, like I'd never existed at all. I spent 5 days watching other people have the fun I was supposed to be having, while my credit card maxed out and my phone stayed dead quiet. Every Instagram story I posted looked forced and fake, but I kept posting them anyway, desperate to show everyone back home that I was living my best life. But I wasn't. I was miserable and broke and more alone than I'd ever been. The flight home was torture. I sat in the middle seat of a packed plane, surrounded by happy couples and families, thinking about what I was going back to. No apartment, no boyfriend, no relationship with Lincoln. I'd gambled everything on 5 days of freedom and lost spectacularly. When I landed, I took a cab to a motel near the airport because I literally had nowhere else to go. The room smelled like disinfectant and cigarettes, and the bedspread looked like it hadn't been washed since the 90s. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Over the next few weeks, I reached out to mutual friends, expecting them to tell me how miserable Reese was without me, how he was ready to forgive and forget if I just apologized. Instead, I heard about how much better he seemed, how he'd started going out again, how he'd joined some kind of recreational sports league, how he seemed lighter somehow. "He's actually dating someone," my friend Gavin told me when I ran into him at Target. "Some woman from his work. She seems really sweet." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Dating someone. Already. Like I'd meant nothing to him at all. "What's she like?" I asked, hating myself for needing to know. "I don't know her well, but she seems stable. Like, she has her life together, you know? They went to that new Italian place downtown last week, and she was laughing at all his jokes about electrical circuits or whatever. Stable." The word felt like an insult directed at me, like I was some kind of chaos tornado who'd been holding him back. 3 months after Miami, I was working double shifts at a retail job just to afford my studio apartment. The place was a dump compared to the condo, but it was all I could manage on my own. I'd applied for dozens of marketing jobs, but somehow none of them panned out. My credit was shot from the Miami disaster, and I was living paycheck to paycheck for the first time since college. That's when I saw them together. I was grabbing coffee before my shift when I spotted Reese at a corner table with a woman I'd never seen before. She had this natural, understated look, no makeup, hair in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost less than one of my going-out tops. But she was beautiful in this effortless way that made my carefully constructed appearance feel try-hard and fake. They were sharing a newspaper, taking turns reading sections to each other and laughing at inside jokes. It was the kind of comfortable intimacy I'd thought Reese was incapable of. With me, he'd always been checking his phone or thinking about work. But with her, he was completely present. When he looked up and saw me standing there, he didn't look hurt or angry. He looked relieved, like seeing me confirmed that he'd made the right choice. The woman, Elena, I later learned, followed his gaze and gave me a polite smile. Not territorial or smug, just friendly. Like she had no reason to feel threatened by me at all. I wanted to march over there and tell her exactly what she was getting into. How Reese was controlling and paranoid, how he'd spy on her messages and question her every move. But looking at them together, at how relaxed and happy he seemed, I realized that maybe the problem had never been him at all. Maybe the problem was me. But I pushed that thought away as soon as it surfaced. I wasn't going to let them make me feel like the bad guy here. I'd wanted more from life than color-coded spreadsheets and early bedtimes. I'd wanted passion and excitement, and someone who looked at me like I was the most fascinating person in the room. The fact that Patrick had turned out to be a disappointment didn't mean I'd been wrong to want those things. The fact that Reese was happy with someone who seemed content with his mundane lifestyle didn't mean I should have settled for less. Standing there in that coffee shop, watching my ex-boyfriend build a new life with someone who appreciated what I'd found suffocating, I felt this strange mix of regret and defiance. Part of me wanted to run over and beg him to take me back, to promise I'd changed and learned my lesson. But the bigger part of me, the part that had always known I deserved more, refused to apologize for wanting a life that felt bigger than the one we'd built together. Look, maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe I could have handled things differently. Maybe I should have talked to Reese about how I was feeling instead of planning secret trips with other men. But I refused to believe that wanting more for myself, wanting to feel alive and desired and free, makes me the villain in this story. Everyone acts like he's some kind of saint for standing up for himself, but they don't understand what it felt like to be slowly suffocating in that relationship. They don't see that all I wanted was to feel young and spontaneous again, to remember who I was before I became someone's live-in girlfriend. I'm not the same person who went to Miami 8 months ago. I've learned to stand on my own 2 feet, to pay my own bills and make my own decisions. I don't need a man to take care of me or tell me what I can and can't do. Sure, my studio apartment is smaller than the condo. Sure, I'm working retail instead of marketing. Sure, I eat ramen more often than I'd like, but at least I'm free. At least I'm not pretending to be satisfied with a life that felt like a slow death. And if Reese is happy with someone who finds his spreadsheets charming and his early bedtimes romantic, then good for him. They deserve each other. 2 boring people living a boring life, never taking any risks or reaching for anything more. I'm 27 now, and I'm still figuring out what comes next. But whatever it is, it'll be on my terms. No more settling. No more compromising who I am for someone else's comfort. The truth is, I'm not sorry for wanting more. I'm not sorry for refusing to accept less than I deserved. And I'm definitely not sorry for choosing myself over a relationship that was slowly killing my spirit. That has to count for something, right?